Welcome to Dave's Garage. This is episode 11, your weapon of choice. My weapon of choice is an E11 Hasbro blaster. It's not as clumsy or as random as a lightsaber, and with a few modifications you can make it look a lot more authentic. Now what I've added to this is a resin kit that I bought on eBay. There was a couple of different versions. There was a New Hope version, there was an Empire version, and there was a Return of the Jedi version. I picked up a New Hope conversion kit. The pieces are actually made out of resin. Actually adds a little bit more weight to the weapon, but hopefully a little bit more authenticity. I also filled in all of the screw holes, because you don't get screw holes on weapons. But I did keep the screw for the battery on the grip clean, so I can change it out. I did want to keep the sound, and I did want to keep the light. So I've got the light taped up. Now anybody who's been in the military will tell you a weapon doesn't stay shiny for long. So if you want to add some battle damage to it, piece of sandpaper and just gently scuff some of the areas on the weapon will give it that battle damage look. Also probably help it stop looking like it's a piece of plastic. What we're going to do to finish it off, we're going to give it a coat of grey primer, going to give it a coat of satin black, and then I'm going to take a brush, I'm going to dry brush certain areas with some silver to make it look like the paint is worn off or chipped off. Also the ejector here, I'm going to paint silver. That's what I've seen on most websites. But when it's finished, it's still not going to be 100% authentic as to the movie, but there's so many different weapons out there. You can make yours an individual piece. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's your weapon of choice. So the blaster's had 2 coats of primer. It's been dry for over an hour now. Now I'm going to give it 2 coats of black. There we have it. First coat, let that dry, and then we'll give it another coat. So here is the finished painted E11 Hasbro blaster, looking a lot more serious Stormtrooper weapon of choice. It had 2 coats of primer and had 2 coats of black satin. I am actually going to paint the ejector silver and then put a little bit of weathering on there to give it that more authentic. And talking of authentic, the original Star Wars weapon was based on the British Sterling SMG. I'm sure most of you know that, a few of you may not. I briefly served in the British Army in the Tank Corps, and they still had SMGs. And I actually got to field strip one of these weapons. And to be honest, all it is a long tube with a handle. The end comes off and it actually has a giant spring in there. It's probably one of the easiest weapons to field strip. Of course it had a larger magazine coming out the side. And if you want to build one of these, there are a lot of tutorials online. There's a lot of guys who put a lot of time and effort into coming up with ideas how to build one out of a piece of PVC pipe and a wooden handle. And they look superb when they're finished. The reason I did this was because I always had the blaster sitting around. But like I said, I've actually handled a real SMG, and all it is a tube with a handle. So to build one yourself, all you really need is a tube and a handle, and you can get pretty close to the final product. So I'm going to add the weathering and paint the ejector. Okay, for the paint and the brushes, I'm actually using a water-based product. It's called Chainmail. I got an old brush and I got a pretty new small flat brush. You could use an enamel based paint, the small ones that you get with the aircraft kits. This is a water based product, and I'm actually going to put it on most of the weapon. I'm not going to put it on the handle because most likely it's just going to rub off over time, but it's what I have around, and so I'm going to use it. I'm not going to taper it off or anything, because actually on the E11 Blaster there's a little recess which is the perfect shape, so I'm just actually going to paint inside that. To do the weathering, I'm actually going to use a old hobby trick. It's called dry brushing. You need a brush. It doesn't have to be a new brush. This is a big old brush. I've used this a lot for dry brushing. Piece of paper, and of course your paint. And what you need to do is get your brush, put some paint on there, and then actually just wipe the paint off. It might sound a little strange, but what you're doing is you're leaving just a small amount of paint on there. Okay, and then you just simply pull it over the surface, and what it does is it just leaves small amounts of paint on the surface detail. Hopefully it's not too hard to see, but it's actually definitely looking a lot more like a piece of metal, like a real weapon. And I'm going to repeat it on the other side, and then we'll be finished. So here I have my finished Hasbro E11 Blaster conversion kit, fully painted, detailed, full working sound and light. Now I will be putting my TK number on this, so it can be traced back to me if I misplace it or lose it in an event. And we'll also talk about the seriousness of what we've done here. We've taken something that was once a toy and converted it into something that looks like a serious weapon. Now originally it has this orange plug on the front. I removed it to add the conversion kit. But this orange plug identifies this to people and the authorities that it is either a toy or a non-firing weapon. If you're taking this out in the general public, reattach this permanently or temporary. I'm not talking about if you're at an event or at a convention in full costume where people realise that you're carrying a prop. I'm talking about being out at least being out in general public. You must reattach this. We're not here to scare people. We're not here to get in trouble with the authorities. We're here to bring the fun and the enjoyment and tell the Star Wars story to people. Never ever point this at somebody. Always show respect for who you are and for other people around you. You know it's a toy, they won't. So always show respect. Show some common sense, reattach your orange plug. I cannot stress this enough. Now in episode 12 I will be covering all of the small details and possibly some new ideas that we will have for finishing the kit, and then you'll be able to see me in the full uniform. So till then, I'll see you at episode 12.